So students, starting with a new lesson under NEET Zoology, under the section Human Physiology, that is breathing and exchange of gases. तो सबसे पहला, what is the difference in breathing and respiration?
Respiration is to produce energy. And breathing is exchange of gases.
Correct. Very good. So breathing is the process of exchange of respiratory gases, that is oxygen and carbon dioxide, by the two mechanisms, that is inhalation and exhalation. With the help of which thick muscle? Diaphragm. Which muscles that joins the ribs together? Intercostal muscles, right? External intercostal muscles. Respiration is the process of release of energy. In presence of oxygen, then aerobic respiration. In absence of oxygen, then anaerobic respiration. ये हमने already जब respiration in plants पढ़ा detail में go through किया है. What is aerobic respiration and what is? So in this chapter, we are going to mainly deal about respiratory structures. You know the structures actually which helps in exchange of gases, and after taking that oxygen it will help in the process of respiration, that is energy production. Okay, so in general just tell me, in humans which is that respiratory structure? Lungs. What is that main respiratory structure? Lungs. Inside the lungs, alveoli. Inside the alveolar sac, alveoli, right? If we talk about the fishes, the aquatic animals, gills. You know gills are again of two types: internal gills and external gills. Internal gills are the gills which are present in the pharyngeal gill slits near the jawline. Okay, but external gills are extensions. So if the slits are there, then it is internal gills. But from here, if they extend out, external gills. Are you understanding? Then, if recently we studied about the arthropods, the insects, the cockroach, in them, what is the respiratory structure? Spiracles and tracheae, right? Spiracles and tracheae. Do they have lungs? There are some insects, they have book lungs or book gills, right? Okay. So these are the various types of respiratory structures. Now let us talk about the platyhelminths, the poriferans and the coelentrates. They all directly exchange the gases throughout their entire body surface by the process of diffusion. By the process of diffusion. Because their body cells are in close contact with environment as they are least evolved animals. Their body is not so complex. Their body is very simple. So entire body cells can directly exchange the gas with the surroundings. But is it sufficient in us? Directly through skin will take oxygen and give out carbon dioxide. Our body is made up of millions and trillions of cells which cannot directly do diffusion with the surrounding. एक एग्जांपल दिया था जब हमने ये चैप्टर रेगुलर लेक्चर में पढ़ा था. If in case of us the gases would transport, क्योंकि हमारी बॉडी में वो गैस ट्रांसपोर्ट होने के लिए भी स्पेशल पिगमेंट है. Is it hemoglobin of the blood? If in that mode the gas wouldn't transport, हमने पढ़ा hemoglobin carries oxygen as well as carbon dioxide in the form of oxyhemoglobin and carbaminohemoglobin, right? But अगर hemoglobin नहीं होता, अगर diffusion के मोड में हमारे lungs में से पूरे body cells को oxygen अगर one cell to another cell ऐसे transport होता, it would take 3.5 years to make the oxygen from lungs to reach to the toes. लंग्स पासून पायांच्या बोटांपर्यंत तो ऑक्सीजन पोहोचायला किती वर्ष लागले असते? 3.5 years. यहाँ पे हम 3.5 मिनट भी बिना ऑक्सीजन के जिंदा नहीं रह सकते, राइट? मैक्सिमम कैपेसिटी 1 मिनट तक होल्ड करने की है मेरी. आई डोंट नो व्हाट अदर्स. उसके आगे आई कांट होल्ड. समझ में आ रहा है? सो हाउ इंपॉर्टेंट आर द रेस्पिरेटरी स्ट्रक्चर्स? Respiratory structures not only take in oxygen, not only give out carbon dioxide, but they help it to transport it to other body cells through some medium. हम में वो medium क्या है? Blood. That is RBCs, that is hemoglobin, right? So these are the various ways or the respiratory structures, or lungs, that is the respiratory organ. We will not call lung as a respiratory structure, it is a respiratory organ. So with the help of body surface or the different, अच्छा अगर हमने frog के बारे में बात किया, frog when it is in the larval stage it respires through gills. When it is in the adult stage on the land, it respires through lungs. But only thing that what is the difference in the lungs of the humans and the frog? In humans, there are various small compartments which we call alveolar sacs and alveoli. Such highly differentiated compartments are not present in frog because most of its lifetime the frog spends under the soil, hibernation and एस्टिवेशन, बिकॉज इट इज अ कोल्ड ब्लडेड एनिमल. बहुत ठंडा खून फ्रिज में से निकाला हुआ क्या है? व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय कोल्ड ब्लडेड? cannot regulate the body temperature when the surrounding temperature fluctuates. समर्स में अगर सराउंडिंग टेम्परेचर रेज हो रहा है उसका बॉडी टेम्परेचर भी बढ़ने लगता है. आई अंडरस्टैंडिंग? सो टू अवॉइड दैट इट कीप्स इटसेल्फ बरीड अंडर द सॉइल. पहले बहुत खाना खा लेता है, एक एक दो दो महीने जाके सो जाता है. So under the soil, neither with the gills nor with the lungs the frog can breathe. Then with the help of skin. So in the frog, even though it has all the three structures, gills, lungs and skin, the majority of the lifetime breathing is done with the help of skin. That is called cutaneous respiration. What it is called? Cutaneous respiration. समझ में आया? So these are the different types of respiratory structures. So I'll just tell it now, write it down quickly. क्योंकि ये just introductory part है, ये होने के बाद हमें आज mainly human respiratory system के बारे में डिटेल में पढ़ना है. Send it to me on my personal number. So starting with human respiratory system, I said it has two parts, upper respiratory tract and lower respiratory tract. So पहले मैं वहाँ पे लिख देती हूँ which are the structures of the organs of the upper respiratory tract. It is nose, pharynx and associated structures. लोअर रेस्पिरेटरी ट्रैक्ट फायरिंग्स क्या है? क्या? लैरिंग्स. चलो बोलो. bronchi that opens into lungs, right? Now let us see it in the diagram. Everyone just pay attention. ये जो भी अभी यहाँ पे करने वाले I'm going to send you the photo. You want to copy it. If we get the time, last 5-10 minutes, you will get time to do it here itself. So, which comes under the upper respiratory tract of the respiratory system, and that is the opening of the respiratory system, that is nostrils, that are also called as external nares. Is there a pair of nostrils, one on the right side, one on the left side. Nostrils run into this cavity which is called as nasal cavity or nasal passage or nasal chamber. Anyhow, you can call it as. This nasal cavity or the nasal passage or the nasal chamber is divided into right and left cavity or right and left chamber because of the central cartilage, that is mesenteroid cartilage. It is which type of cartilage? Hyaline or elastic? It is flexible, right? Okay. So the nasal cavity is divided due to mesenteroid cartilage, right? Then talking about nostrils. And this is what? Right. This is right nasal chamber and this is left nasal chamber. What these openings are? Nostrils. But the anterior region of the nostril, this is posterior, this is anterior. The anterior region of the nostril, with dark green, is called vestibule. What it is called? Japan Ragala, right? So ये जो vestibule part है, it is internally lined with fine hair that are called vibrissae. What they are called? Vibrissae. Any doubts to you? Okay. Then the nasal cavity runs internally and opens into internal hole, that are internal nares. Again pair, one from the right side, one from the left side. Those internal nares are guarded by a cartilaginous flap which looks like a venta when we widely open a mouth. These are the listener. That is uvula. What it is? Whenever we swallow the food from the oral cavity, this is whenever we swallow the food when reaches at the internal nares, can the particle enter into the nasal cavity due to the force of the swallowing? But that time this uvula gets closed. When we are swallowing the food, the uvula gets closed and the food doesn't enters into nasal cavity. समझ में आया? At the same time, when the same food bolus is coming down, this is another cartilage here, epiglottis, that also closes the windpipe and prevents the entry of food particles into trachea, that is windpipe, right? So uvula prevents the backward entry of the flow and epiglottis prevents the forward entry into trachea. It has to go forward but into, that is the food pipe. Right? Now, this is the common region that passes air into trachea and food into esophagus. That is pharynx, which is divided into three parts. The part of the pharynx which receives internal airs. Correct? मैंने बोला ना हमने पढ़ा है already. I'll do one thing, epiglottis इधर लिखा. Okay. The part of the pharynx which receives the oral cavity is, and the part of the pharynx which anteriorly opens into trachea and posteriorly continues along with oropharynx into esophagus is. So that makes. समझ में आ रहा है सबको? Those who are online, is it visible clearly?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
And also, then talking about the sound box, that is the opening of laryngopharynx into larynx. ये नीचे क्या है? Trachea. Okay. The opening of laryngopharynx into larynx is called glottis. What is called? Glottis. Then what is the opening of laryngopharynx into esophagus is called? Gullet. Very good. Very good. तो यहीं पे this is, and the opening of laryngopharynx. हमने पढ़ा है laryngopharynx anteriorly opens into trachea, that is larynx and then trachea, and it posteriorly opens into esophagus. Good. So that opening of laryngopharynx into esophagus is called gullet. Right? Even homework दिया था तब भी. I remember. Okay. So here students, at the glottis means at the opening of the laryngopharynx into larynx, there are two folds. I'll just show you. These two folds are called as true vocal cords. Why true? Other animals also has vocal cords, but they can do only sound production. They cannot do phonation. Phonation means they cannot develop speech. They cannot speak a word or a sentence. Are you understanding? They can only produce different types of sounds. You can take cat, dog, sparrows. You can take them. But they can produce only sound. They can't do phonation. They can't speech. समझ में आया? So human vocal cords are the true vocal cords. Now, do you see the space between the vocal cords? That space between the vocal cords is called rima glottis. समझे? I think this we did much. बाकी almost पढ़ा है. Right? This one is the additional part. Any doubts till here? Sure. Now, talking about pharynx, the walls of the pharynx are made up of. मी थोडं इकडे लिहिते. आम्ही बोललेलं ऐकू तर येतच असेल. Just move it. दिसते? आणि नंतर मी फोटो पाठवणार. The wall of the pharynx, it is a muscular tube. The wall of the pharynx is made up of skeletal muscles. That means voluntary or involuntary? Voluntary. Striated muscles, skeletal muscles, voluntary muscles, one and the same. Secondly, they are internally lined with mucous epithelium, right? That we know only. The entire respiratory tract almost is lined with mucous epithelium, so that they will secrete the sticky substance, the mucus. When the air is passing downward, the dust particles will stuck to it, and the air will get filtered and clean, separated from the dust particles. Okay. Any doubt till now? Then talking about larynx का भी हो गया. हाँ, larynx में एक important part है. The larynx is externally protected by different types of cartilages. In those cartilages, 3 cartilages are unpaired and the 3 cartilages are paired. Yes, any doubt?
Ma'am, please the move camera.
Okay, is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes,
larynx is surrounded and protected by different types of cartilages. 3 cartilages are unpaired and the 3 are paired. I'll just write it down. Unpaired are thyroid cartilage, cricoid cartilage. What is there? Just a second. Because नीट में ये क्वेश्चन आ सकता है that dash paired cartilage is present around the larynx. Yes, unpaired में है सबसे पहला thyroid cartilage, then epiglottis. Is it surrounded just above the larynx जहाँ पे begin हो रहा है? Are you understanding? And the third one is cricoid cartilage. तो ये जो 3 cartilage है present around the larynx are unpaired, single. But the 3 paired cartilages are, the first one is, sorry, 4. Arytenoid, corniculate, cuneiform, so out of these all, thyroid cartilage is the largest cartilage. Which one?
Thyroid.
And the thyroid cartilage is the largest cartilage because we know it is present around the thyroid glands. The thyroid glands are present on the lateral sides of the larynx. So वो thyroid gland को protect करने के लिए cartilage है. Ultimately वो larynx को भी protect करता है. Why so many cartilages around the larynx? Because it is our sound box, right? उसको कुछ भी damage या injury हो गया, we lose our ability to speak. That is why it is surrounded with so many cartilages. Apart from that, students, thyroid cartilage is the largest. Its anterior region is grown a bit extra, that we call Adam's apple, right? Which is usually seen only in males. Females may rare. It is under the effect of testosterone, obviously, and which is produced in males only. So due to the effect of testosterone, the anterior region of the thyroid cartilage is grown a bit extra, that is prominently seen in males, boys, okay? That is called as Adam's apple. It is not so prominent in females. Secondly, this testosterone also has their effect on vocal cords or the vocal folds or the true vocal cords, because of which they are thick and long, so the vibrations produced are less, so the pitch is pitch is high or low? Low. That is why they are chorus voice. In females, they don't have testosterone, so the vocal folds are thin and short. They vibrate, so the pitch is high and the sound is shrill. समझ में आया? Okay. Any doubts till now? Now we'll come to trachea. The trachea, that is the windpipe, is it externally supported by incomplete C-shaped cartilaginous ring. It's not a complete ring, it's incomplete, half ring, C-shaped, right? This so we know. I don't need to mention it. हमने already regular में लिखा है. So students, internally the trachea is lined with pseudo stratified ciliated epithelium. ये मैंने कहा. It is internally lined with stratified epithelium हमने पढ़ा है. Having layers of the cells one above the other. Pseudo stratified मतलब normally it is one layer of the cell above which it is the second layer of the cell, right? यहाँ पे the length of the layers is not uniform. ये बड़ा भी हो सकता है, इसके बीच में छोटा लेयर सेकंड लेयर आ रहा है. Are you understanding? So the layers of the cells are not uniform, not with of same length. So it is called as pseudo-stratified, false layers. Got it? Ciliated तो we know, to trap the dust particles to clean the respiratory tract. Any doubts till here? What is the role of this C-shaped cartilaginous ring? They prevent the trachea from getting collapsed, right? Okay. Should I move ahead? Because finally you want to enter in the lungs, but उससे पहले the trachea at the level of fifth thoracic vertebra. Trachea, that is the windpipe at the level of fifth thoracic trachea, exactly in the middle, okay, of the thoracic cavity, divides into two branches, that is right bronchus and left bronchus. I'll just label this one, left bronchus. Students, these two bronchi, plural is bronchi, are also called as primary bronchi. समझ में आया? क्योंकि सबसे पहला डिवीजन किधर हुआ? इधर ही हुआ. ट्रकिया सबसे पहले डिवाइड इधर हुआ, so they are called primary. The first divisions, that is bronchi. Any doubts till here? I'll just take the photo of this because I need to erase something, because now I'm going to teach you bronchial tree. Okay? So, students, we were studying that the trachea divides at the level of fifth thoracic vertebra into two branches, right and left bronchi, which are also called as primary bronchi. The primary bronchi, after entering into the lungs, divides into segmental bronchi. Divides into that are lobar bronchi. अब ना ये समझने से पहले थोड़ा लंग्स के बारे में जान. Students, we have studied that right lung is larger than if you observe the right lung externally, it has two fissures, horizontal fissure and transverse or longitudinal fissure. So because of these two fissures, is the right lung divided into three lobes. The same way, left lung has only this longitudinal fissure. So that divides the lung into first lobe and then. In each lobe, there are some fibrous connective tissues. There are some that divides the lobe into segments. Are you understanding? in such way, right lung has 10 segments and left lung has 9 segments. समझ में आया? So right lung has 3 lobes and each lobe then is divided into 10 segments. Left lung has 2 lobes and totally divided into 9 segments. Lobes are because of fissure, because of, and the segments are because of. समझ में आया? So then, now you'll understand. Each bronchus when enters into the left lung, say left lung, it will divide into 2 secondary bronchi that are called lobar bronchi because each one enters into each lobe. Then the lobar bronchi will divide into segmental bronchi. Are you understanding? Suppose यहाँ पे segments है. अब देखो. Is it dividing and entering into segments? So what these are called as then? Or right from trachea till the tertiary bronchi, all are supported with C-shaped cartilaginous rings. Do not forget that. Okay. Still, this division is not ended yet. Now, these tertiary or the segmental bronchi further divides into bronchioles. What divides into? Bronchioles. तिकडं वेगळं इथं वेगळं. Okay? Bronchioles are also supported with. Finally, the bronchioles divides into terminal bronchioles. Are you understanding?
Yes.
अभी खत्म नहीं हुआ. The terminal bronchioles will divide into respiratory bronchioles. Respiratory bronchioles will terminate into, will end into alveolar duct to open into. Are you understanding? So I'll just label your alveolar sac. फिर पुढचा आपण इकडे डायरेक्ट फ्लो चार्ट काढू. आणि तो खूप खिचडी होईल. Terminal bronchioles further divided into respiratory bronchioles. And respiratory bronchioles end into alveolar duct. Each alveolar duct, एक alveolar duct, contains 2 to 3. And each alveolar sac contains 2 or more than 2 alveoli. समझ में आ रहा है? अब यही सारा फ्लो चार्ट आप इधर ड्रॉ. Is it okay if I just write the names?
Yes.
वापस से सब निकालने की जरूरत नहीं. तो सबसे पहला we begin with trachea. The trachea at the level of fifth thoracic vertebra divides into primary bronchi. The primary bronchi then divides into which are called as lobar bronchi. मी थोडं शॉर्ट मध्ये लिहिते, तुम्ही फुल वर्ड्स मध्ये लिहा. ते लोबार नका लिहू, फक्त लोबार ब्रॉन्काय असं लिहा. ओके. Then secondary bronchi divides into, that is Then that divides into bronchioles. Then actually bronchioles में भी primary bronchiole, secondary bronchiole, tertiary bronchiole and फिर terminals. But all together you can write bronchioles. Terminal bronchioles. Then they terminate into each alveolar duct opens into and each alveolar sac has done. So imagine, so I'll just draw attention. Just invert it. Ulta karo. Did it look like a tree?
Yes.
So this is called tracheolar tree or tracheobronchiolar tree. Are you understanding? Any doubt? एक ही डायग्राम में सब दिखाने का ट्राई भी मत करो. ओके, ये जो भी है डायग्राम भेजूंगी पार्ट्स में ड्रॉ करो. जैसे कि अभी लंग के लिए एक चाहे तो अलग से डायग्राम निकालो, उसमें फिर ये फिशर्स को भी नाम दो. जो हॉरिजॉन्टल है वो है ट्रांसवर्स फिशर, जो ऐसे स्लैंटिंग जा रहा है वो है ऑब्लिक फिशर. आई जस्ट राइट इट हियर. ये वाला कौन सा है? इट इज हॉरिजॉन्टल. सो ट्रांसवर्स भी बोल सकते हो इसको तुम, हॉरिजॉन्टल भी बोल सकते हो. एंड ये वाला है लॉन्गिट्यूडिनल और there it has only oblique oblique fissure. समझ में आया? So here it is divided into two lobes. Any doubt?
No.
Take this photo. So right from trachea till terminal bronchioles, it is called as conducting part of the respiratory tract. What it is? Means right from trachea till the terminal bronchiole, the gases are only either taken in or given out. But from respiratory bronchioles, which develops into alveolar duct, that opens into alveolar sac and ultimately opens into alveoli, it acts as a respiratory tract because exchange of gases takes place between them and the blood. Sanjay? So this is called as understood? Any doubt? So students, we are done with human respiratory system. Now the next lecture will study mechanism of breathing and then we'll study about the transportation of gases, जिसमें हमें हेल्डन्स इफेक्ट, बोर्स इफेक्ट एंड हैमबर्गर्स फिनोमेनॉन पढ़ना. उससे पहले लास्ट पॉइंट अबाउट द लंग्स. Lungs are protected by the two peritoneal membrane, which are also called as serous membrane, called as pleural membranes. What they are called as? So the outer pleura is called parietal pleura and the inner pleura is called
Visceral.
correct, visceral pleura. The cavity between the two is pleural cavity filled with pleural cavity filled with that reduces the friction between the two membranes. Whenever the lungs expand and compress, the two membranes get rubbed over each other. That fluid acts as a lubrication, reduces friction, maintains the internal balance. At the same time, it keeps the two membranes in the contact with each other by making a thin film of the fluid. दोन काचेचे तुकडे एकत्र आणले पण मध्ये पाणी लावले. Are you understanding? That is also needed. जब हम breathing पढ़ेंगे ना, that time you will understand why this contact, are they directly in contact or through that film of the fluid they are in contact? But that is also needed. That is मतलब friction में नहीं होगा, but वो contact में भी है. समझ में आया? Okay. Then the part of the respiratory system, that is the thick muscle, that is diaphragm. Where are the lungs located? In the thoracic cavity. Thoracic cavity is made up of ventrally, sternum, dorsally, vertebral column, laterally, ribs, and posteriorly. समझ में आया? तो thoracic cavity is made up of ventrally, sternum, dorsally, vertebral column, laterally, ribs, and from the downside or posteriorly, ना anteriorly में केवल posteriorly it is. लिखोगे इतना डायग्राम के बाद. So I'll just mention your thoracic cavity. So star कर रही हूँ. Will you write what it is made up of? So फोटो में जब दिखेगा ये स्टार मार्क्स, you have to write there. The thoracic cavity is made up of what? क्योंकि जब हम ब्रीदिंग ये पार्ट पढ़ेंगे कल, तो ये सारी चीजें हमें यूज करनी है. thoracic cavity ही तो एक्सपांड होती है ना, तभी ब्रीथ इन करते हैं, या thoracic cavity डिक्रीज होती है तभी ब्रीथ आउट करते हैं. तो उसमें ये वर्ड्स आने वाले हैं, sternum, vertebral column, ribs and all. समझे?
Yes.
Any doubt? Understood?
Yes.
ठीक है.
C-shaped cartilage कुठपर्यंत असतं?